Okay, hope everybody can at this point. Okay, we have to go live because the way time works, the way my life is right now, if we don't go live, I don't think you'll ever get a video. So just came back from work. I am in my new house, just moved. Basically, we are, long story short, we are in preseason. Preseason games are about to start. Our game starts tomorrow. However, there's some questions. Everybody has questions. We have some things we need to answer. We need to literally get into this. So I received a lot of questions. There's so many questions I have that I need to answer. I'm going to just make this as quick as we can, just so we get to the point. You guys can watch this later if you like. It's up to you. Um, this is actually from a student that is in Atlanta, sent this to me via email. I do accept questions via Instagram, um, like direct messaging. We could do it that way and just kind of make these quick hitters, make this into a series. So I'm going to hit just a few questions, no more than 10, just to get our feet wet. So first question goes, describe the training or education needed for this job. Okay, what job? So let's talk about what I do. So I'm a physical therapist, athletic trainer. I work in professional sports. I work in the NBA, to be exact. I'm finding more and more people, women or people of color in the NBA, in the NFL, in MLB, MLS. So there's a lot of us. And we're just spreading the good news. So at this point, training or education for this job. So specifically my role in this position, I work with players, obviously. I have a lot of administrative tasks to do as well. So I'll do the daily participation, say who's playing the game, who's not playing the game. I will also do any injury status updates that I need to do, on top of working with the other staff to make sure we have workers' comp or workers' compensation for insurance purposes, working alongside with other healthcare providers for setting up physicals, setting up dentist appointments, those things of that such. Communicating with the medical director about anything that has popped up, any new injuries that have popped up, any changes you need to make into practice. You're coordinating with the performance strength staff. You are also um, even performance science dealing with load and tissue acceptance. So say if someone has an injury, how are you going to progress them back into practice, back into play? What kind of drills are you going to allow them to participate in when they're on the court? Can they do any group activities with their other team members, or do they have to do something on the side with other coaches? Can they do live play? Can they get any contact? Can they go against coaches half court, full court? So those are some of the things that you want to keep in mind. That's what a lot of this job entails. Then you travel with a team. When you travel, okay, do you have this player's mouthpiece? Do you have their orthotics to put in their shoe? Are you coordinating with the traveling coordinator that we have on staff to make sure their sneakers, the sneakers they want to match with their away team gear, is there? Also, are you, padded materials? Someone got a hit to their knee. So this is just, there's so much stuff we can go into detail about what this job entails. But let's talk about the education piece. So I did did my undergraduate degree in the University of Georgia. Um, I won't go too much in detail because that'd be another video. Just a nice overview. University of Georgia, their athletic training was actually a undergraduate degree or a bachelor's degree at that time. I went from the years 2009 to 2013 or 2013. And while I was there, I actually wanted to do physical therapy first because that's what I thought. That's what you do, sports medicine, go physical therapy, which you can. And as I went along and did my or like electives, I found out about this athletic training and I was like, what the heck is athletic training? Like, what do you do? So I'm in a training room setting. I'm observing. This is what they call athletic training observation in a training room at Georgia. And I found out, I was like, man, I see these people like stretching out players, but doing rehab like things with them. I don't know what they're doing. I see them taping ankles, taping wrists and thumbs, and I'm like, this looks kind of cool. And then come to find out, then you can go at practices, at games, and you can see the injury happen right in front of your face. Like you don't have to wait to them to actually show up to your clinic or show up, show up somewhere for you to see them 2, 3 days later. So I was like, man, this is cool. So after I did all of that, while I was at the University of Georgia, I got into the athletic training program while I was still in my physical therapy program. In nowadays language, it may be called kinesiology, pre-physical therapy, all that stuff. So all the prereqs for that to get into PT school. At that point, I was like, I'm gonna do PT school. I need some money. Let's be honest. So once I graduate, or before I graduated, I was like, let's take the GRE. Lovely. All those people out there who have already taken their GRE, need to take their GRE, please do not feel defeated. Do not feel defeated at all. The GRE is used for acceptance into physical therapy schools or some other schools. And in this case, don't get discouraged if you don't get the score that you were looking for. Schools don't look at just your GRE scores. They look at like your GPA, other things that you have done while you were in your program. So keep that in consideration. I took the GRE twice. I never got the score I needed to go to PT school. But long story short, I was like, I guess I'll do PT school. And I was like, where do I apply? Where do I go? I'm in the state of Georgia. There's so many schools in Georgia, but I was like, I really want to go here and go there. Long story short, we ended up, things got expensive. I didn't look into waivers. I ended up applying to one school, and it was like, if I don't get in, then I guess I'll do athletic training. Long story short, get into Emory University. That is the only school I applied for. And I was very surprised, wasn't paying attention to my emails. I was accepted, didn't even see the contingent acceptance letter. Long story short, drove my butt down there from Athens to Atlanta, accepted it. While I'm in PT school, that's when, based on my degree in undergrad, I was able to take my board exam for athletic training. So that is just an extra piece. You do not have to do that. But when you're in physical therapy school, you do your prereqs, all the things that when you're in PT school, you get your anatomies, all the things that you're going to need to be a physical therapist. And I say physical therapist, a general physical therapist to pass the board exam, to work in a clinic, work in the hospital, general things of that such. So as you're getting to the end of physical therapy, the way our program is set up, we actually do our clinicals a little bit in the beginning of the program, and then and then in the second year. In our second year, we do rotations, we do our long-term rotations, and that's where you can be in various clinical settings. We all need to do an acute care outpatient setting, and maybe a SNF, skilled nursing facility, something as an inpatient rehab type of setting. As I'm doing those things, then you can get a feel for, man, I really like this. Or like for me, I liked acute care, and I was like, man, I really like acute care, but I like sports. So I was like, I don't know, but I'm still stick with sports. But athletic training and acute care kind of go hand in hand with the emergency medicine piece. So once you finish physical therapy school, do all the things you need to do. Obviously, you take your board exam. Most schools will automatically enroll you into a pre-board exam class to study, to actually do pre-test, stuff like that. I will say do the best you can, because the pre-tests are hard as crap, but do not be discouraged. Do not be discouraged at all. Like, your board exam is not going to be as hard as you think it is. Some students I've talked to already recently, they have to take an actual exam while they're in school to even say they could be ready to sit for their board exam. So that is something new. I didn't have to go through that. But the studying, all the stuff you learn in school prepares you for that board exam. Even your pre-tests will look like, man, this looks like this is much harder than what it is. It's really, the pre-tests are hard, but your board exam is catered to what you learned. Because all physical therapy programs that are accredited is accredited by CAPTE, and they're going to ensure that you're learning what you need to learn, what you need to know, to do no harm, to do well, and to be a general PT. So with that being said, when you're finished with physical therapy school, you can go wherever you want. You don't have to be stuck anywhere. I chose to do sports medicine, and for me, I was okay with working in a clinic, but I wanted to do a little bit more. So because at that time it was extremely unpopular for a Black person, I would say a Black female, to be in the setting that I wanted to be in, which was pro sports, I decided to go ahead and apply for a residency, a sports residency, sports fellowship. These are all optional. These are not things that you have to do in order to be successful. A lot of people may not even do these things. At that time, when I was going to CSM, go to CSM if you can to network. I was speaking with the president of what it was called the sports section at that time for the APTA. I was talking about Duke, Duke University, and I was like, man, Duke, okay. Duke is in North Carolina, I think. Sports fellowship, okay, let's do it. Talking with the program director, which is like, do your research, talking to the Duke sports medicine, the director there found out you cannot go right into a fellowship. You need to go into a residency. So I was like, okay, I'll do the sports residency, apply. They only accept one student in the entire universe. So whether you're in the United States, outside the United States, whichever, one student. And I was like, man, okay, I'll go ahead and apply. I actually got accepted into this, and then we get started. The residency in general, whether you go to Duke, you go to Ohio State University, or other programs that have, or anywhere, Houston Methodist, all those sports residencies actually create that framework. An amazing framework for making sure, like, okay, do I really know how to eval? Do I know how to eval specifically for a sports medicine, whether it's an injury where I see right then and there, or did this player, athlete, or weekend warrior come to me on the weekend or 2-3 days later, and how do I assess this? How do I assess this injury? So whether you have an athletic training background or not, it's very helpful, and you're paired up with mentors. So every so often, every first for an entire year, Ohio State may be a year and a half, so keep that in mind. But for each rotation, meaning you will rotate through a mentor, that mentor may be specialized in concussion management. That other mentor may be, great with like football during the football season and understanding like the equipment and how to take off, how to tape ankles, how to deal with like contact sports and the injuries and return to play for that. So it's really good. Duke was good in that sense, like getting that framework. And you get didactic meaning you're getting classwork material, you're getting things that talk about different sports injuries. How do you manage those sports injuries? How do you assess them? How do you collaborate with other healthcare professionals? So those are some of the things that a residency can do for you. And while you're in that didactic or the portion, and you're getting the hands-on, like on-field hours, you're then qualifying to sit for your sports boards to get your sports specialty. So with that being said, the way I got into the program when I was at Duke, I didn't do my homework well enough that I couldn't sit for my sports boards. So it was like, okay, I could work anywhere. I could work at college. At that point, a lot of jobs open up depending on your program and what, you have this sports training. So a lot of jobs are opening up, and college is a great option. I was like, yeah, that's awesome. I like college, but I still want to do pro sports. So long story short, I would get into details in a different video as to why I may not have been on the same page as other people of like, I want to do pro sports, but maybe, other people are saying that's a stretch. Pro sports, what are you talking about? No one like you, look like you in pro sports. What are you talking about? So anyway, I was like, you know what? I'm going to do a sports fellowship. That's what we're going to do. So at that point, I was like, I want something for a little bit more autonomy. I can kind of dive in a little bit deeper into sports medicine. I can get an understanding. I can get follow-up cases, not only see the surgery, do their rehab, follow them all the way through, go to their practices, go to their games, rotate through the different sports in the college Division I setting, and get and pair up that athletic training with that physical therapy and really dive in deeper. And it was like a great experience. I went to Wake Forest for my sports fellowship. My program director actually is a graduate from UGA for undergrad, and they actually did Duke's residency and Duke's fellowship program. So he had like a great sense of, what is tangible, what are some things that you can actually learn and apply when you go off to work into that work setting and you have these athletes looking you in the face, and you need to figure out how to manage this case. How do you then talk with the coaches? How do you then communicate with the strength conditioning staff of what they can and cannot do? How can they, what drills can they participate in? Can they do contact, no contact? Can they play? Are they going to be ready for this Friday's game? Like, those are some of the things that when I did my fellowship, it really got in deeper for that. So, which is great. So based on all those things, that's just the education piece. That's how kind of prepared me, I would say, for my job. And that's my education pathway. Long story short, to answer that first question as what was your education pathway, your education need for this job, this sports medicine job I'm in, managing cases, working with coworkers, ensuring that the player is safe but can play to their highest potential, meaning ready for performance, and that readiness. Like, when people say first team ready, that's what we're talking about right here. So I would say my education really prepared me, along with my experiences, that we could talk in another video, but we're just talking about the education standpoint right now. So next question is number 2. So 16 minutes in, or if people want to skip ahead when they look back at this video, is what does a typical day or week look like for you? That is a very complex question. Or I should say I have a complex answer for that. I'm gonna try to make it simple enough to say we have a practice day when we're at home, a practice day when you're on the road, a game day when you're at home, a game day when you're on the road. You have a recovery day, and then you have an off day. So with all that being said, all those days have different schedules, and those different schedules dictate how can you plan your day and get things done. So the start of the day could be 7:30 or 8:15 with the updating the coaches on injury reports or anything that maybe has changed the day before, because things change fast. That's the one thing I'll say with the sports setting. Things change so fast that you could see someone, you could see a player, and the evening goes by, and maybe, not saying it has to be in the middle of the night, but even early that morning, or when they show up and they're like, I have pain right here, I don't know if I can move. Like, that stuff is real. And keeping that communication, having a great relationship with your players, you can actually get ahead of that. So there's no surprises when you get on a game day or a practice day. And so with that being said, you're communicating with the other staff, see if they have anything that pops up with their players. You're talking with your medical director, and then you're giving that update to the coach, the head coach, the assistant coaches that work with those specific players to adapt anything you need to, whatever treatment and modalities, or just hands-on movements and anything you have to do to see if that player is safe enough to get on that court or field for later. So when that happens and you're doing, after the meeting, you're probably doing treatment. Again, communication is like key. You're communicating like crazy that you are tired of talking. You are communicating with you're communicating with the strength conditioning staff, the coaches, that means assistant coaches, the head coaches, the performance analysts. Say if you found out where the injury occurred, you need to contact the video analyst and say, hey, at this clip at this time or around this time, did you see anything? Could you give me that clip? And you're analyzing the clip. You're talking with your medical director. You're talking with the player themselves, see how they are, see what movements you can do to actually get them better, to figure out what's going on. If you didn't see the play, if you didn't see like what happened. So that being said, then you're doing your treatment based on it being, home or away will dictate where you're doing your treatment. If you're in your training room, or if you're in a hotel, in a ballroom, or in a meeting space, like all that stuff is just different settings at that point. And then if it's a practice day, then you're trying to see them before practice starts. Same thing with game day, but say if it's a game day, most likely your games are in the evening, typically. So you're going to try to see them in the morning. You're not trying to push and wait all the way till, right an hour before game day during their pregame treatment, pregame court time slot to then treat your player. That's too late. You're acting as early as you can. So with all that being said, you are seeing them, you're treating them, and they may go straight on into the weight room to do some movement. You may do their movement, or a strength conditioning performance staff member may do their movement. You're just making sure everyone's on the same page. And if I miss something, that strength conditioning staff member catches it, or if another coworker, I have a physical therapist or an athletic trainer is going to see that player too, or see while I'm assessing that person, make sure I'm not missing anything. So all that stuff go into play. And obviously you just test, retest. You learn that in school. Test, retest. Okay, now let's get onto the court. Okay, can you do this movement? Not there yet. Okay, backtrack it. You're gonna regress or progress your stuff and see, can they play today? Can they practice today? Or what can they do tomorrow or the next day? That kind of thing. All that can take hours, that could take 30 minutes. It all depends on what time goes on, because at the end of the day, these are also professionals. They have meetings, they have other things they have to do. So say if it's a practice day, you're then, taping ankles, meeting with whoever else you need to meet with to make sure everyone's on the same page, including chefs. Make sure chefs know practice will typically be around this time. They may end at this time. Making sure food is ready, shakes, smoothies, or whatever are ready. The chef should already know the dietary restrictions for whomever's on the team. And then you're at practice. Once you're at practice, you're watching, you're just making sure you're aware. Really, you're just making sure if anybody needs anything, God forbid, someone's tape gets loose or someone falls on the ground, you're making sure the floor gets wiped up, or, the water and everything is supplied. So wherever that's located, whether you're home or away. So say if you are home, most of the players know where the hydration stations are, so you don't have to worry about that. But say if you're away, you make sure like there's towels and beverages, hydrating beverages there for them to consume. And then you're just making sure you're kind of overseeing at that point. So then that happens. I'm also doing administrative stuff at that point. I'm most likely saying who's participating in that practice. There's any workers' comp stuff I need to do a lot. Most likely I have phone calls happening that's coming from doctors, dentists, about any players that need anything or had anything going on, getting things imaging wise, setting that up, putting in orders, stuff like that. So that's what's different, I would say, than being in a clinic. In a clinic, you're going through the physician, you're going putting in through orders. I'm not saying we bypass physicians. We work hand in hand really close with them. So we will communicate with them what we need to do next, whether it's a case, whether it's a baseline, or preseason physical. We're communicating really well that maybe I saw something. I'm telling the team physicians, hey, I saw this. Can you let me know what you think and anything else you see? And that can help with our treatment, whatever we need to look out for to make sure that this player is available and they're not missing any time. So that's some of the stuff that happens after practice. You are then making sure if you already scheduled to see a player, because you need to make sure they stay nice and loose, or they had an injury that you help you worked on, and they did some alternate work, or they're getting some shooting afterward. You're just making sure everyone is good. Same thing with staff. Like, you want to make sure the other staff members, they don't need anything. Whether it's reloading the tape, adding more tape into the tape drawers, like cleaning up the tables, like simple stuff that you do in a clinic, that just cleaning tables, make sure everything is good. Sometimes we have meetings. So meetings can be with consultants that come in for whether it's blood labs that we're doing preseason, any preseason testing that we may do. So preseason testing wise, because we're in the preseason, so I'll talk about what a typical day looks like in the preseason. We will actually most likely do Y balance, or we'll do some type of movement screen. We may even do a SFMA, which is an assessment, not necessarily a screening tool. So SFMA, meaning assessment, the A stands for assessment, and keep that in mind. FMS is a screen. So either way, we're doing some of those things, making sure we catch anything ahead of time. We may do some hop testing. We may do counter movement jumps. We may do force plate testing. We do some of these things just to make sure we keep an eye. We're already watching how they move. We're just going to keep an eye of like, okay, how's your weight bearing dorsiflexion? Okay, what does it look like? What does it look like now? Okay, we go through a training camp scenario where there's like maybe 6 practices in over a week span. Okay, well then, how's your body feeling now? Or in a day after day situation when there's live or there's no live, do you feel your tendons? Do you feel your knee talking to you, your ankles talking to you? Excuse me, are your old injuries popping up? Are you feeling that a little bit more? Those are some of the things that we do on a typical day. It's very fluid. Again, a lot of talking, communication. So at the end of the day, that's kind of how it works. So the next question, number 3, we're at the 25-minute mark, where it says how many hours per week or day do you work? Per day and per week, it always varies. It depends on you're traveling or not, if it's a game day, practice day. So on paper, I work 86 hours a week. I can't say that's what it is, if it's under or over, because it just depends. Per day, it could be, when there's like hands-on stuff, practice, pre-practice meetings, it may be, you may say, I get there at 7:15, 8 o'clock. I may leave at 3 o'clock, but I may be gone for like 2 hours and I got to bring my behind back for something else I have to do. And I may not get home until late. Or if it's a game day, say if you have a meeting in the morning, our meeting may be from, 8 to 10 or something like that. So that's like 2 hours. And then you need to go see players in the morning to prepare for the game, even though it's in the evening. So however time that may be 1 to 3 hours. So then that's like 5 hours right there, which is like, that's not bad. But then you get a little break, you get your life together, get your nails done, get paperwork done, all that good stuff. And then go work out, maybe, some of those things. And then you have you get your behind at the arena. And if you're away, you're probably going to get in the arena a little bit earlier, because then you have to take in the fact of the drive to get to that arena. And because you're going as a team. So that's another thing. And then say if you're home, think about your drive to get to that arena, but you're driving separately. So it's a little bit different. And you're getting there ahead of time for a walk through or shoot around or whatever it is. And you're making sure everything's set up when you need to. When I say set up, you have a sideline kit, which we could talk about another day. What does your sideline kit consist of? What is your AED? Your AED, whether it's a book bag, where's your actual AED? What is in there? And making sure that's up to date. All the first aid and CPR stuff, you have that with you. You're communicating most likely ahead of time anyway, which we've already done. Communicating with your paramedics and your other emergency medicine staff, making sure everyone's on the same page. So when you're doing that, all that stuff takes time. And then walk through or shoot around happens. Then after that is maybe 45 minutes to an hour or so. Then you're going to see your players. At that point, you're going to, have a treatment slot for them. Then they may rotate to a activation or a lift, or most likely activation, may not necessarily like a heavy lift or something. They may do that, and then they go on the court and they do pregame stuff. And this is all before their team meeting, because everybody knows who plays sports, high school, whatever. There's like, you got all the players come together and they have a meeting before the game, actually, before the players run out into the court as a team and actually, do their lines. You ever seen the lines on the court and they warm up X, Y, and Z? Yes. So that's some of the things that takes into place. Then the game actually starts. And at that point, now you're thinking like, I showed up at 8 o'clock. It's now 7 p.m. If it's a 7 p.m. game, that's a lot of time. You may have had a 2-hour break in between. And then the game starts at 7. The game may not end till maybe 10:30 or 9:30, 10. Then after the game, you're not just going home. You're going to check in with your players, your athletes. God forbid an injury happened. You're documenting. You're doing workers' comp stuff. You're then treating the player. You're communicating with the coaches. Remember this whole cycle I said about communication? You're communicating with the coaches, communicating with the medical director, communicating with other coworkers, strength conditioning staff, head coach. That whole thing happens again. Then you're planning for the next day. Okay, I'm going to see you at this time. This is what we're going to do tonight when you go to bed or before you go to bed. This is how we're going to treat to reduce any type of inflammation or X, Y, and Z. That's the type of stuff that happens, that occurs. So as you can tell, you may not get home till maybe 11:30 at night, and that's if it's a 7 o'clock game, and that's not even an away game. Like away game is another thing, because you have to wait till everyone leaves to get on that bus. Like we're not flying out until we get the last player or staff member on that plane. So at the end of the day, that could even be like another late departure. So I can't even, like, hours of the day, that is like, can you imagine? And that happens. You don't even think about it until someone asks you that question. Starting at 8 a.m. and you got a game at 7 p.m. You don't get home till 11:30 at night, but a 2-hour break in between. That's basically what that looks like. And however many games you have per week, whether it's away or home, determines how many hours you spend. So multiply that times three games a week or something. And then on top of that, think about like traveling East Coast, West Coast, like all that other stuff goes into play. So we're getting there. I promise we're getting there. So now it says, what particular duties, this is question number 3. What particular duties do you find most enjoyable? I would say just connecting with the players. Like there's a lot of stuff I enjoy and a lot of stuff I don't enjoy. But when it comes to administrative stuff, that's not as fun. But when stuff gets when you're on a time crunch and you need to find what you need for that person to get an MRI, for that person to be seen by a medical provider X, Y, and Z, and you have that right then and there, that's the one thing I enjoy, having stuff readily available so we can make it so streamlined for the player or staff member who needs to see a doctor or family member, because players have family members. So that's another thing too. I do enjoy that part. I do enjoy seeing the players. When I say backstage, not like, I mean, they are performers, but backstage meaning like as they get themselves prepared, getting ready for a game, how their routines may be different. Some get really pumped up, play loud music. Some are like in tune with themselves, have their own beats in their head. Some are like to crack up and tell jokes. Like that stuff is fun, especially when you travel and you understand the quirkiness of some of these players. Some of the stuff that they say is just so funny, or how they act and how they all joke. And they joke on you too. They joke on me. Shoot, they joke on all of us, and how they joke on all of us, and we have fun. And it's late nights. We're getting, going from one game to another city. We're flying out. We get to the hotels like 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning, and you got practice the next day. You're just like, so how some of them carry themselves, and how some of them don't even sleep on the plane. A lot of them don't sleep on the plane, and they maybe how they carry themselves and how they grow into professionals. It's like, it's awesome. Like that's just a lot of stuff I really enjoy about this job. And then when it asks like the next question, what's the particular aspect of your job you do you like the least? I mean, I would say like sometimes you don't get to see family. So I think that's something that I think people need to be aware of when they want to get into professional sports. They're like, oh, I want to be where you are. I want to work with athletes, X, Y, and Z. Nothing wrong with that. That's cool. But you got to know, you got to put in that work. And on top of that, a lot of times you may start off being an intern. When you start off as an intern, sometimes you're a water girl or water boy. Sometimes you are wiping down tables, or you get to the point where you're in this position and you find out how much work and hours you put in that you're like, man, I want to get 8 hours of sleep. And it's like, nah, this life, you ain't getting 8 hours of sleep. Very rarely you're getting 8 hours of sleep. And then with this whole COVID stuff about policies of getting tested, God forbid, if a positive pops up, then you're doing the paperwork for that. You're submitting that over to the league. You're contacting people, doing contact tracing, finding out who, they were around or who was around them. Were people wearing masks? Like there's so many things that come into play with that. And then, holidays come around, Thanksgiving, Christmas, and it's like, man, can I see my family? Can they come see me? But it's like, I may see them for a day, or I may see them for a half a day. So those are some of the things that I think people don't keep in consideration. And I would say I've gotten used to it over the time, that I just thank God for Skype and other means, FaceTime, to actually communicate with my family. Because I don't have family in Oklahoma. My husband and I are here. But it's something I'm glad that there is social media and there's things to actually connect with family. And then when you get times to break away, even if it's not during holiday times, and you can see your family, like you have you're part of an organization that will allow you to go do that, because they know mental health is so important for you to go see your family, whether that is in I say preseason time, but say, after some NBA summer league, and then after draft, but before preseason, going to see your family, that's so important. So when you are in these settings, you're not feeling like, man, I miss my family, because you're going to be working. You're not going to most likely not have a Thanksgiving like that, and a Christmas. It all depends, but very rarely. There's so many flight delays, so you just never know. Okay, so what made you? I'm gonna make this the last question. So we're at the 35-minute mark. Yeah, because there's so many other questions. So many people have other questions, and I want to make sure I answer everybody and not take so long on this video. So we're at 35 minutes already. Last question. What made you decide to become a physical therapist athletic trainer? Very good question. Oof. So when I was in high school, I was like, oh, I want to be a lawyer. I want to be a lawyer. And somehow went to University of Georgia, which I actually was thinking about going to other schools. But when I ended up going there, I was like, you know what? Shoot, I want to do engineering. I want to do biomedical engineering at that. And I was like thinking like, yeah, I'm going to make these prosthetics for people who lose their limbs, whether it's through war or any type of, trauma. And I'm going to do that. And I'm going to fit them with these, prosthetic devices. And we're going to go from there. And I was like, you know what? We have a big, huge engineering school at Georgia. Let me follow an engineer. We're going to go do that. Thank God they allow that. I want to go do that. And I realized this person was behind the desk. They were in the lab. And I was like, I can't do this. Like, I was like, do you talk to people? Like, do you see a patient? Like, what do you, like, what? I was like, nah, this ain't gonna work. And at that point, I was like, what am I going to do? And I took so many tests. So at Georgia, there were so many, a lot of other schools have this. I'm just speaking about Georgia because of my experience. There's so many resources. So they had the Career Center, X, Y, and Z. So there, and then also too, I was in a freshman dorm where they even had a person in there who did like career stuff or just help freshmen along the way. And I had connected really well with this lady that she is a godsend, and the Career Center, all that good stuff. And I literally was like, I don't know what to do. I don't want to waste my time. I'm on scholarship. Like, thank God I was on a full ride, but I was like, I gotta graduate in 4 years. Like, yes, I was in my freshman year and I was just freaking out. And of course, all my friends at that time, they knew what they wanted to do. Oh, I'm pre-med, or I'm going to go to law school, X, Y, and Z. And I was like, I don't know what the hell I want to do. So I was just like, shoot, okay. So I did Myers-Briggs, which is something you can do if it's out there, that a free resource. If it's through your school, it might be free. Myers-Briggs, they take your personality, and other programs do this too. So it could be like College Bound. I don't even know if they still have that around, but Google is really good. You take these personality tests, and they may match you like on what careers best fit you. And they had law on there and all that good stuff. And of course I was like, man, I don't know. Didn't realize what was listed the whole time was physical therapy, because I wasn't thinking about physical therapy. I went through physical therapy when I was hurt, but I didn't think about like be a physical therapist. I don't know. I just wasn't thinking about it. So long story short, I'm at the point where it's like I did poultry science. I didn't know, I was getting desperate. I did biology, poultry science. I was like, maybe I'll just do med school. I was like, med school's cool, so I'll just do all my sciences. I'll figure it out. Like, because I was like, I ain't doing engineering, but I loved calculus. And I was like, I ain't going to be a tutor all my life. So like, what am I going to do? So at that point, Mom was like, why don't you just pray? And I was like, shoot, why do we underestimate the power of prayer? I was like praying, and literally on my third day, because I like went home just to go visit for the weekend, my older brother at that was like, hey, Vanessa, you ever thought about physical therapy? And I was like, no. Why not? So literally I was like, okay, let's look into it. What are the prereqs? What do you do as a physical therapist? Like, I obviously went through physical therapy, and I still was like, what does a physical therapist do? That's so sad. But literally rehabbed my knee, tore my ACL, MCL, meniscus, had surgery, rehab to get back on the basketball court, for me to re-tear it again, and was still like, what does physical therapy do? Whatever. But anyway, found out all the stuff you do for physical therapy. And then I found out there's so much stuff you could do with it. I was like, I could do aquatics. I could be working with horses. I could work with people who, ride horses. So I could do equestrian. I could work with children. I could work with the elderly. I could work in a hospital, the inpatient setting. Say if people are not ready yet for like an intense rehab, I can do a skilled nursing facility. I can do home health. So when all this stuff came into the picture, I was like, man, okay, I know I did physical therapy when I hurt my knee, but then my mom did physical therapy, which I can tell for another story. But the real reason why I was like, let's do this, my mom had my younger brother. After she had my younger brother, she had a massive stroke, and it actually was a hemorrhagic stroke, not ischemic, which is actually the most popular one. Hemorrhagic meaning like blood vessel going crazy in the brain. She had a hemorrhagic stroke, and literally the left side of her body was paralyzed. didn't know what to do. They didn't know where the bleeding was coming from at that point, at that time. She obviously, after a lot of prayer, and they, by God's grace and mercy and miraculous power, like that blood vessel like dried up. It just stopped bleeding. They didn't have to go cut open her brain and try to, you know, and use and actually, you know, sever it. When I say sever it, meaning like cauterize or whatever. So anyway, she then had to learn how to move again, because the doctor was like, well, I don't know if you're going to be able to hold your baby, X, Y, and Z. This happens about 2 weeks after she had my younger brother. So like, what the heck? I am 8 years old at the time. She went through physical therapy. She couldn't move her arms or nothing. She then obviously rehabs went through, and as that time went on and with healing and all that good stuff, recovered to the point where she was using a walker, able to use her limbs, and she got to the point where then nobody even knew she had a stroke. Her speech was there, so she had speech therapy, occupational therapy, physical therapy. That trio I didn't even know existed. And so obviously I got older. So when I'm thinking about all these things, I was like, man, a physical therapist could do that too. So that's when I was like, okay, let's look into it. So that's when I found out about physical therapy and realized all the chemistry and stuff that I did could actually qualify, because I was like, I'm going to be pre-med because I don't know what to do. All that stuff, because you need, for, as you look on the physical therapy website to go to physical therapy school, it says what classes you could take. But when you go to undergrad, they load you with all these extra classes, so beware. And obviously, in order to have a certain degree, they may say you have to take these classes. We'll get into another topic about how advisors screw people over. There are some good advisors out there, by the way, but just saying. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But anyway, because of my mom, her rehabbing through, I rehab through two different scenarios: a stroke versus an orthopedic injury. I was like, a physical therapist can do so much, and I don't have to give anybody medicine. I can do movement. I can do manual work. I can, you know, crack a neck. When I say crack, obviously that's the layman terms. I can crack a neck, crack a back, and then like get somebody back on recovery. I can drop needles. When I say needles, acupuncture needles. No, I'm not an acupuncturist, but with trigger point dry needling or dry needling, and even though I'm learning some of the acupoints that acupuncturists do, you can do that. And then with movement and with cupping, all these different modalities, and with movement, you can get this person back to doing what they need to do. Whether they need surgery or not, you can do post-op. All this stuff is like great. So I was like, man, say if right now, I didn't want to do sports medicine. What if I wanted to work in a clinic? What if I wanted to work in a hospital? You can do all those things. I don't have to retake a test to say, oh, I'm in the sports setting. I'm going to leave the sports setting now. I'm going to go into, you know, acute care. You don't have to do none of that stuff. So all that being said, it's so versatile. Like, you can do whatever you want to do. And it's just encouragement for people. It's like, I want to do, you know, some people say, I want to do sports medicine. You may find out that you may like something else while you're in school or after school. When you work in a clinic, you're like, man, I feel like I'm getting a little burned out. Let's try a different setting. With travel physical therapy, again, we could talk about in another scenario, travel physical therapy, which I did. So we'll talk about another video that can give you the options for seeing different venues, getting paid really well, by the way. Travel the US per diem, and you get money for food, money for your stay, X, Y, and Z. Great, good salary, getting paid weekly or bi-weekly, however they set it up for you based on the company. You can go in a different setting. So I think once I found out all that stuff and I got exposed to that, and PT school exposed me to those things, I was like, why not? I can go have a child, decide to do a 9 to 5, or, you know, work in some other setting, and come back and say, okay, I want to do this. Or it's like, okay, I don't have a child yet. Let me work all these crazy hours because it's fun and I'm traveling all over the universe. Off season, you may go to Greece because maybe a player's from Greece. Like, you may go all these places. Like, why not? So at the end of the day, it's just, you know, something that I thought, and I'm glad I made that choice. And I thank God for guiding me. I thank God for a supportive husband to actually push me forward. Again, we'll talk in the future about how my dream sounded very crazy to a lot of people until I got here. Then all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, I always knew you'd be great. Yeah, there's a lot of people like that in your life that you know of too. Your dreams need to scare you. At the end of the day, you need to give them up to the Lord, pray about it, and then do your part. And if you fail, I know, like Aaliyah's talked about a lot of times in her songs, the first time you don't succeed, you know, get yourself up and try again. Like, shoot, that's the same thing. Like, you're not going to succeed. Your GRE score may suck the first time, maybe even the second time, but you need to keep going. So all that being said, I'm about to hit the 45-minute mark. Probably going to cut it off here so I'm not taking up too much time. So if people want to, watch it again, they can do so. But I appreciate it. Please subscribe. Um, you'll have more videos, I promise, even if I'm not in this setting, even if it's not in this state. I could be stinking in California, or we're going to, where are we going? Milwaukee really soon. I may be in Milwaukee filming another one and show you around what it looks like, all that good stuff. That's the type of stuff I'm trying to bring, so people have awareness and help other people grow and push themselves. Scare yourself with your dreams, man. Scare yourself. And I just want to help other people, other students, people who are already PTs already, who think they can't get into this setting. There's so many opportunities that we'll keep talking. But that's all for me today. Keep hitting me up with more questions on IG. I'll get to them as much as I can. And thank you so much for your love and support. Have a great day. Okay, bye.